Alright. So, we're live.
Yo, we're live, baby. Let's get it.
This is the dance move we always did on the Camino. But you know, we're talking to an American audience, which means that I would be willing to bet 100% of the audience doesn't know what the Camino is.
Dude, my mom told me that literally 4% of people that do the Camino are American. So.
Wow, damn. Okay, so we should probably explain. I want to start with what just happened. So tell your story of how you ended up on the Camino, and then we'll explain what the Camino is.
Dude, this was the craziest story of my entire life this past month, and it's brought nothing but joy and gratitude, and I'm pumped to see where we're going because over the past month, me and Ozzy have become really close friends.
Yeah.
So pretty much, I'll keep it short. Last year, I went to this Third Door conference for Alex Benayan, and I briefly met Ozzy, and that's funny, we'll talk about it.
The Third Door is a book, so we met at a book conference in LA last year.
What happened there is not really important, but fast forward a year, Alex has another conference, and he's in New York City, and I'm helping him with like small things with the event. And Hussein from the Third Door last year, he's from Toronto, Canada. He was on the last pod.
Yeah.
He hit me up, and he was like, dude, can I crash at your place? And I was like, hell yeah, you could crash at my place, you know? So pretty much he comes over, and while he's over, he's telling me that he visited this guy, Elliot.
Oh.
And to give you context, Elliot's this guy that was in Alex's book, and he's Alex's mentor.
Bro,
so,
oh, shit, bro.
you're bleeding? Not on the whites, bro.
My elbow's bleeding, and I just dipped it into my white pants. Oh, frick.
It'll come out. I have like a Tide stick we could
You
use.
think it will come out?
Yeah, 100%.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, frick. No, sorry. It's such a bad start to the podcast.
No, it's a good start, man.
Oh, yeah.
That's a perfect way to start it off.
All right. Yeah.
So pretty much, Hussein's at my house. He tells me about this Danny Miranda podcast with Elliot.
Yeah.
And I know a little bit about Elliot, but I watched the podcast. Main summary of it is that Elliot gives people these challenges, and if you complete the challenge, he mentors you. So I'm like, Hussein, let me have his email. I cold email him. He responds back to me in 2 hours. Walk the Camino de Santiago in Spain. Let me know if you need funds for the trip. So I'm like, dude, I got to do this, you know? So I respond back, I'll do it. I wind up going to the Third Door conference again, like the next day, and I ask Alex, like, who should I bring with me?
Yeah.
And Alex looks at me, he's like, dude, bring Hussein, the kid that was staying over with me. So I asked Hussein to come, and from there, we plan our trip. We book our flights, and a couple of weeks pass by, we're figuring the logistics out, and then Ozzy hops into the mix, and I think the perfect way to start is when the call we were all on.
Hold on. I need to jump in and explain a couple things. So Elliot Bisno has this business called Summit Series. Basically what Summit Series does is they bring the biggest entrepreneurs in the world to a quote-unquote networking event, but sometimes it's on a cruise ship, sometimes it's on the world's largest powder mountain, and you stay in the same room as the other attendees. So you'll have like Kendrick Lamar in a room with Richard Branson or Warren Buffett and Steven Spielberg, like biggest entrepreneurs in the world. And this guy mentors some of our friends, and we know about him from the book that we read together. And so that is why Mike wanted him to mentor you. The other thing is that after Mike sent him this elaborate cold email asking to be mentored by him and for his challenge, he said, walk the Camino de Santiago, which I'm sure you had no idea what that was.
Not a clue, bro.
So you look it up. Turns out it's a 550-mile trail across the northern part of Spain, and it's a trail where it's the same trail that Apostle James walked, and it's really, really famous in Europe. Many, many people every single year do it. They do it to have an experience with God, or to process the death of a loved one, or to experience some wonder, figure out what they want to do in the future. Everyone has like a search, but only 4% of those people are American. So no one in America knows what it is. And he starts planning this trip to walk the Camino. The author of the book tells him to bring this kid Hussein, and that's where I come in. And that I'm going to New York City for a creator camp event. Has nothing to do with Mike. Mike works in office. I'm a podcaster, and I fly here with no place to stay. So no place to stay, but I know that the Third Door, the book we read, just hosted an event here. So I asked someone from last year's event, I say, yo, could you guys find me someone's house to stay at? And this kid, Parker, goes, you can stay at Mike's house. He lives in New York City. And I'm like, great, I'll stay with Mike. Apparently, I met Mike for 5 minutes last year. I don't remember meeting him. No offense.
Yeah, shout out Parker, bro, if you're watching this.
Yeah, shout out Parker, which I'm sure you will watch. And I get to his couch, and he starts telling me this story about how he reached out to Elliot Bisnow, and he's sending to walk the El Camino de Santiago. And I didn't even know what that was. I find out, I'm like, wow, that's incredible. That sounds like a dream. I am not planning to do the walk with you at this point. I just think it's cool. Fast forward, I spend a week in New York City. I'm doing podcasts with YouTubers, meeting some of my heroes. And the day of my flight to go home, it turns out that someone else at the same creator camp event that I'm at happens to send Elliot a cold email. And Elliot FaceTimes this kid and tries to convince him to come on the trip with him and his friend Hussein. And I'm just sitting there watching one of my heroes, Elliot Bisnow, try to convince this guy to let him pay for a trip to Spain, to let him go. And to be fair, this was super last minute. Like, this guy has a job. He has an internship. Like, I understand.
Of course. He's a super cool dude, by the way. I don't think we should say his name, just like...
Yeah. But, so he can't do it. He hangs up, and I'm, like, sitting there gawking. I'm like, bro, Elliot Bisnow, like, founder of Summit, multi-millionaire, wants to, like, buy you a trip to Spain. You don't... And I'm not, like, dissing him, but I'm just like, dude, if that was me, I would be there in a heartbeat. And everyone kind of in the room is like, well, like, if you want to go, why don't you just ask him? And so I'm heading to the airport to fly home to San Diego, and I start recording this video for Elliot Bisnow in the airport. I don't even have his email. Like, it's not, like, an easy email to get. So I hit Mike up. I'm like, what's his email? Mike sends me his email. I'm like, Mike, can you put a good word in for me? I asked my friend Chris to put in a word for me. I'm driving to the airport after filming this video in the New York City subway, and this guy, this hero of mine, asks for my phone number. What's your phone number? He goes, let's do this thing. Life is not a dress rehearsal. And he just tells me to skip my flight to San Diego and that he'll send me to Spain and he'll pay for my whole trip, and where he pay for the flight. And then I skipped my trip home. I had my parents overnight ship my passport to me, and I flew to Madrid the next day and started walking 15, 20 miles a day, 4 to 10 hours, anywhere in that range. And that's when me and Mike became true best friends. And I hope that I think the setup of this has been a little complicated, a little confusing, but for the majority of this podcast, it's going to be about what happened when we walked 8 hours a day, 200 miles across Spain.
And dude, what I'm hyped about is I feel like your podcasts are more about like individual people, and I feel like you're shaking it up, and we're just talking about this insane trip we went on, and it's like 2 weeks of crazy stories. And one like little precursor I wanted to say, everything in life, like me and Ozzy are doing well. The reason somebody like Elliot appeals to us, in my opinion, and I hope you can agree, is because he talks about how the masses move one way and how he one day in college literally stopped in his tracks and walked the other way. And he applied that to his entire life in terms of relationships, business, family. Everything he did was in part to be different. And we're in situations now where this is the time to be different in life and do something that nobody else has ever done. So this was like the first action step, I feel like, for both of us. And Ozzy's been traveling for a while, so this is part of a crazy story for another time that can tell the entire trip.
So anyways, they had been walking a couple of days before me. I fly into Madrid, but this trail doesn't take place in Madrid. It takes place across the whole northern part of Spain. So in order to meet up with them, I take a train to, like, literally, I'm talking the middle of nowhere. Like, I get off at this train stop. There's nothing. There's like a couple of shacks nearby. And Mike has to call a private taxi from the hotel to come pick me up. And as I'm getting picked up, I made him stay on the phone with me because I'm like, I don't even know, like, person could just kidnap me and, like, I'd be gone. And anyways, I get to a little town, Molina Seca. I've met Hussein before. I just met Mike like a week before. I was on his couch. Now I'm with him in the back alleys of Spain. And we wake up for the first day. we hit a little cold plunge in the local lake, and I just knew something about when we went in that cold plunge. I was like, this is the beginning of something great. Like just running in that lake, seeing Hussein in his underwear, just the funny shit. But I want to dive into, like, we obviously can't go through the entire Camino, so I want to just dive into some like funny stories and shit that happened.
Dude, I feel like we should just start off with a bang and just say the craziest night that happened.
Oh, what, the last night?
Yeah.
Okay, start with the last night.
Yeah, because we go through the entire thing, it's going to be boring. But anyway, so pre-context, when you're in Spain, everybody sleeps from like 4 to 8 p.m. It's so hot out during the summers. Everybody eats dinner at like 9, 10 p.m.
Yeah.
So we're a day from our destination. It's called Santiago de Compostela. And me, Ozzy, and Hussein are eating dinner, and Gabe arrives. When Gabe gets there, we're staying in a hostel. For some reason, these hostels are extremely strict and...
Hold on, we should explain.
Like what a
fourth
hostel is.
kid. No, they don't know about Gabe. So it was me, Hussein, and Mike walking. So we're walking for 11 days at this point, and we have 1 day left of walking. And Elliot hits us up, and he goes, I'm sending a fourth kid. He actually told us this with 3 days left of walking, but when you're flying from Ohio to the middle of nowhere in northern part of Spain, it takes 2 days. So by the time he gets to us, it's 10 p.m. We're eating dinner, our last night, so the kid only gets to walk 1 day with us. And you can pick it up from there as...
Yeah, so that was good because you like when you're doing this, you don't even realize there's so much like back knowledge.
Because they really have no idea. You're just throwing around people's names. You're like, who is this?
So pretty much Gabe gets there, and we're checked into this thing called a hostel. They're called albergues in Spain, but I'm sure everybody knows it's a shared living space.
Yeah.
So at 11 p.m., this guy, the owner, locks it. It's either you're locked in or you're locked out.
Yeah.
So it's 10:55, and we don't think that there's going to be this big problem if one of our friends comes in. Like me and Ozzy would talk to the owner like in Spanish, and we would try to get him in. So we're walking through. We get through the front door, and we're like, this is going to be great, you know?
Yeah, like our friends here with us.
We go walking up the steps, and this guy kicks open the door, the owner, and he's screaming, Chico, Chico, Chico. Yeah. And we're like, what? We're like, what's going on, you know? And he grabs Gabe, and he brings him outside.
Yeah.
So now me and Ozzy look at each other, bro, and we're like, dude, we got to go out and like we have 2 minutes before he locks the front door, you know?
So just to give you context, I don't know if it's because it's the Camino or whatnot, but with some hostels, some albergues in Spain, the doors just auto-lock at a certain time, which means that no one can enter and no one can leave. And we're about 2 minutes away from auto-lock, and the kid who just flew, who knows nothing about the Camino, who knows nothing about where we're at, has none of the contacts that we have because we've been walking for 11 days, we've met people. He's about to get auto-locked out, and we basically have to leave because we can't just leave him on the streets of some mountain city. Insane. So we're running to our laundry. You hang dry everything in Spain. We're grabbing it off the hang dryers. We're being loud in the albergue while everyone's sleeping. And we're like, dude, we gotta go. And we're trying to get our buddy Hussein to... We're like, we gotta go, and for some reason he's like freezing up, and
it was the best decision for Hussein to stay and like sleep. He was a little tired, so we split up at that point.
Yeah, so like, but it wasn't like we all made a decision. We're like, Hussein, you stay, we go. It was like everyone was scrambling, and he was like, I don't think I'm gonna come with you guys, and we're like, all right, you either come or don't come. And then the doors auto locked, and it turned out that one of our group members was inside, and the rest of us were outside, and.
He's threatening, the owner's threatening to call the police, and we're like, bro, just let us in. Like, what's the big idea?
Yeah.
And then he keeps threatening, so we're like, you know what? Like, we're leaving. Like, don't worry about it. So we walk away. We're in the middle of the street. It's about 11:15 p.m. Yeah. There's no other hostels open. Albergues open.
Yeah.
We head back to the restaurant because that's still open.
Yeah.
And for some reason, we can't stay with our friends because they're in private accommodations that we met on the trail, whatever. So we're looking at each other, and we're all like, what are we going to do, you know? Like, are we going to sleep in a field? Are we going to sneak in, like, through a window, use the third door, you know? So I feel like collectively we all looked at each other, and we were like, you know what?
Well, before you say this, we had been talking about this idea the whole trip. When we were like, that would be sick if we did this. We'd be like, if we did this thing, that would be cool. And we never ended up doing it. And when we get back to this restaurant, all the other friends we met who were in our albergue skipped their reservation too. So we were just kind of on a high. We're like, we'll all figure it out together. and then Mike come back in.
Yeah, so we're trying to convince them now. We all look at each other, the three of us first, and we're like, you know what? Let's walk the last 20 miles to Santiago throughout the night.
Yeah, throughout the middle of the night, yeah. And the girls, we made friends with a bunch of girls from the south of Spain. Are like,
Andalusia, shout out to everybody.
shout out Andalusia. The Andalusia chicas are like freaking out. They're like, you can't walk through the night. That's so dangerous. Don't walk through the night. And I'm sitting there trying to think like with my logical brain. And I go, all right, tell me why we shouldn't walk through the night. And one of the girls goes, it's so dark. And I'm like, all right.
Illegitimate.
Sure. Like, why? What else? They go
bugs.
There's bugs.
They say there's ticks, the plants and just like weird excuses. But then you could talk about who comes in and
Yeah, so we're sitting there. They're like, I'm like really trying to understand why they don't want us to go. And they're like, the dark, there's bugs, and it's dangerous. That was literally all they could come with after me questioning for 10 minutes. But then the guys who we wanted to walk with us, who also skipped their albergue reservation, were like, yo, let's walk through the night. And they're like, we would walk with you, but we left all our stuff in the albergue, so we have to wait till the morning. And they're like, but that's so sick. They're like, just watch out for these wild boars. Yeah. And they show us these boars that have like horns on them. And then one of the kids starts telling a story about how like the boar chased him through a city or something. And we're like, yo, why didn't the girls bring up the wild boars?
Exactly. It was super ironic. We pretty much like, after that, we were alone, the three of us, and we made the decision to walk. We all got like a cappuccino or like an espresso shot, and we like cheersed it up, took a video, and like threw it back. So then it's probably 12 at this point, and we begin our walk.
Yeah.
And I'm going to start out. I had this headlight. And if you've ever played like a scary, like paranormal activity game, dude, it was exactly that.
Slender Man. It was, if you know Slender Man, where you like look with the spotlight, it's the exact same image. Except you were wearing it too. When you're not wearing it, like when you started walking and I was trailing behind, because usually like someone's trailing behind, it's like not chill anymore because the only one person has the spotlight. So you gotta at least be walking in front of the person.
Yeah, Ozzy would have been like the first one taken. So pretty much we're walking, and I do have control of the headlight, which I took for granted. But the three of us are like going through the mountains, and it's very scary, you know? Like, I'm gonna be honest, you're hyper aware, you're tired from... We walked like 20 miles that day as well.
Yeah, so we walked 20 miles. We didn't take a nap that day. And then walk another 20 miles like a few hours later.
Exactly. And throughout the night, something funny happened. We were kind of talking, and we were like, dude, I'm so hungry. Like, it'd be crazy if there was like an albergue, like, which had food, like a restaurant almost.
Like a store. We're like, yeah.
And less than a minute later, it's like 1:30 in the morning. This guy's like cleaning up for the night, and we're like, yo, like in Spanish, can we come in and buy some food, please, please? And he lets us in, and we all like fuel up. And then from there, we continue to walk. And
yeah, there was like a lot. One of the big themes that stood out to me was attracting, not seeking. And we were all like, we all kind of accepted that nothing would be open. But we were like, if there was a store, that would be so clutch. And this guy was smoking a cigarette outside of his closed store. And we asked him, and he reopened it for us. And he even offered to drive us to Santiago, but we that would like kill the point. Like, we're not going to drive.
Yeah, we were kind of like locked in at that point. Like we were like meant to do this, and it would make this story is insane. So we wound up keeping on walking, and we're exhausted. Pretty much moral of the story, a 4-hour trip throughout the night took us about 6 hours.
Yeah.
We arrive at Santiago. We walk up to get to Santiago. It's such a steep incline, but once we finally get there, we're so exhausted. The three of us legitimately look at each other, grab our bags, like use them as pillows, and fall asleep in the town square, like in front of this beautiful church. Yeah,
so the Camino de Santiago is Spanish for the walk to Santiago, which is the church that Apostle James walked to. And I'm telling you, there's 4 different routes that all walk to the same church and thousands of people on each route. So every day, thousands of people are pulling up to this church. And we pulled up at like 6 a.m., no one. Like us, in front of possibly the most famous church on earth, one of them, top 10 for sure. And we pull up, and it's just us. Mike and Gabe put their bags down. We all put their bags down in like 2 minutes. You guys are out cold. And that was probably the craziest story of the night.
Yeah, and even after that, like, we couldn't find a hotel room, so we're, like, running around the city, like, can we stay here? And there's nobody there.
Oh,
Like, the
yeah.
rooms are booked, but we wind up getting a room, and really funny, really quick, Hussein catches up to us, and
Yeah.
he calls us about 100 times, like, legitimately 100 times each, because we're passed out for 8 hours, but we wake up and we let him in.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, going from that, what else do we got?
Okay.
A good story.
I wanted to just dive into like the little things, like what it's. They're probably wondering, like, I think as a viewer, they probably understand that we walked a crazy amount, but it's not like if I were to just like get up and start walking across America, it's not at all the same thing. Like, this path has been around for years. There's these yellow arrows. I'm kind of wearing one on my wrist.
Oh, yeah, show that off.
That for 500 miles straight, they have yellow arrows marking the entire path. So you could walk the path without a phone and still get start to finish 500 miles. But the other thing is, like I was telling you, people go there because they have a search. So it's like everyone is like as open-minded as you can be. Like in America, depending on where you're at, it's really not that easy to talk to strangers. And then if you've ever stayed in a hostel, it's like a lot easier to talk to someone in a hostel. They're like adventurous. And then the Camino, like as far as my life, I've never met an easier place to like meet people than on the Camino.
Exactly. And one of the points that me and Ozzy were making, we really like sat down. We're like, let's try to meet as many people as possible. And I think we could talk through pretty much how that wound up developing, because at first, like, yeah, we were meeting people, not walking, like after at night at restaurants. We'd go up to people, we'd become friends. But I think you could talk about a little bit when you realize like the secret sauce to the Camino.
Okay, so this is probably worth mentioning is that, like, again, it's not just a walk you do. Everyone is kind of trying to learn from it. And I didn't go in. I found out a day before I was on a flight to go there. So I didn't go in it with any like ulterior motive of like, I'm already religious. I had a relationship with God. I didn't have anyone die around me. I'm not worried about my job or my future. So I kind of went in with nothing, which is kind of like an outlier on the Camino. But I knew that I wanted to like learn from it. And one of the things that really stood out to me is how the Camino reflects life. So we're all super athletic. I mean, this guy was almost an Olympic swimmer. If you saw him shirtless, he's jacked. If you saw my friend Hussein, he's jacked. Like, we're all athletes. So for like the first 3 to 5 days, we were like, most people do like 20 to 25 kilometers. We were doing like 30 minimum. So we're waking up, we're busting ass, doing 30 kilometers, and we would get to the destination. We'd try to meet some people. We'd go to sleep, wake up super early. And we were kind of in this like grind mode, like go. And one day, Hussein and Mike were literally racing to the finish line.
Yeah, let me give him some free time.
Yeah.
So I had this idea in my head because Hussein, for example, he was hurting a little bit. So I thought, okay, like, I'm going to challenge Hussein to a race, like, to motivate both of us, you know?
Yeah.
So he leaves the breakfast spot a little bit earlier than I do, and then I wind up trying to haul the entire rest of the trail to catch up to him this day. So
they're literally racing, and I'm feeling like sick this day. I don't feel good, and I'm like, I'm not participating in this race. I'm gonna take it slow. And then I was so like out of it that day that I walked 2 miles off the path. And later in this podcast, we're gonna get into the pain that you feel on the Camino, but
undescribable.
just imagine like every step, the worst. Like if you've ever gone to Disneyland or a theme park and your feet hurt at the end of the day, imagine that times 100 every single step. And so walking 2 miles off path was like soul crushing.
Detrimental to your day.
Because it's like at least with the Camino, you always know like you're moving toward your destination. But when you're walking 2 miles just to get back on track, you're like, dude, like I'm just hopeless. I felt sick. I'm walking back. I'm fighting my thoughts. And I get back on the trail and I see this girl, and it's like there's opportunity to talk to people everywhere. And we weren't really meeting people because we were in such a rush. And we'd meet people at the destination, but like not that well.
We'd leave too. We'd get to the destination and be like, let's walk further.
Yeah, we would always just keep walking further. So then like most people are at the destination all day. So they're meeting people all day or they're walking with people all day. And we were just kind of staying with ourselves. But then when I got back on the trail, I saw this girl. I started talking to her, and we kicked it off really well, and she introduced me to her other girlfriends, and her other girlfriends introduced me to her guy friends. And I knew, like, the second I met them, I was like, these are, like, my best friends for the rest of the trip. And what I also realized is that it's so much easier to meet people walking than it is to meet people, like, sitting or at a destination. Because if you're, like, and this is good advice for you guys, too, is, like, if you go to approach someone who's sitting down, whenever there's, like, a moment of silence, that moment becomes awkward. But if you meet someone and you have them, like, walk with you, the silence is filled by an action. So, like, one thing we really learned, just like a side note of the bigger lesson, is that if you want to meet someone, or if you want to like invite someone to do something for the first time, make sure it's kind of like an action, because that action replaces all the, like, awkward silent moments. But anyways, the bigger lesson of this was that by not rushing to the destination, I made the best friends I had ever made on the Camino. And I realized that's so ironic, because the Camino literally reflects life. Like, in this case, the destination was a city that we're sleeping at. But in life, the destination is some imaginary goal you have in your head, which is either like, I want to make $1 million. I want 1 million podcast listeners. I want my dream car, my dream house. And sometimes when you're like a me or a Mike, you get so obsessed on, like, working hard and building a legacy that you, like, tunnel vision on this destination that lives in your head. And by running there as fast as you can, you miss out on the journey, the people, everyone. And that's, like, I knew that before. Like, everyone throws around the quote, enjoy the journey. But the Camino was like, I lived that quote. I was like, and you, the next day, like...
Yeah, so I could just say pretty much what happened was I wound up racing Hussein. He destroys me. I wound up pulling my hamstring too, like the last 3 kilometers. Just quick side note, this, like, physical therapist was speaking to me.
Yeah.
And she was, like, saying that my legs were small and, like, I'm not fit enough to do this. It was one of the most humbling experiences. But I get to the destination, me and Hussein are looking at each other, and Hussein's hyped and I'm happy for him. And then all of a sudden we're just like, what was the point of that? Like, we see Ozzy come, he made some friends, and I want to say a quick story too. I made another group of friends as well, and that night, pretty much, we all got dinner together.
Yeah.
It was pretty much a group of 15 of us, but save that thought for a second. And by the way, we're doing this trail for about 2 weeks. I don't think we said that at that point. So now, Ozzy has this revelation, and he shares it with us, like, dude, the best way to meet people is while you're walking. And the entire time, I don't know why we didn't think of that. Yeah. We're like gung-ho, and, like, why are we meeting people? And that was exactly that.
And just to add on top of that, like how we were talking about the walk so painful, the best remedy to the pain is a good conversation.
Yes.
So it's like, by walking with other people, you walk a little bit slower, but you're, like, enjoying it so much more, which we just didn't even realize.
Exactly. So we wound up taking that lesson, and we could share the next day was amazing. But before that, we all go to dinner that night.
Yeah.
And we're mobbed out. It's about a group of 15 of us. We're having the best time ever.
Yeah.
And we're eating dinner. And me, Ozzy, and Hussein, like, look at each other.
Yeah.
We know it's, like, time to go to sleep. So we're like, you know what? Like we know each other.
Yeah.
So we just get up, pretend we're going to the bathroom. The 3 of us look at the bill. It's 80 euros for 15 people.
Yeah.
So we decide, like, you know what? Let's just, like, pay for everybody. You know, these are really genuine people. Just an act of kindness, you know, for, like, being friends.
Yeah.
So we go to the hotel room, wake up the next morning, and we're receiving all these messages and videos of how grateful these people are that we did this. Yeah. And eventually we became really, really good friends with these group of people. And towards the end of the trip, something...
Wait. I want to jump in more on this dinner event before you go to the end. Because it was Mike's idea. He's trying to be humble. So he got up first, and he paid the bill, and he left. And then he texted us. And so I got up, and I left. And then Hussein was like, I got to go to the bathroom. He got up, he left. So, like, and keep in mind, we're all, I guess Hussein's from Canada, but we're like the American group. So everyone else there is from Spain, and the 3 Americans get up and leave. And, like, I'm just, like, picturing them, like, yo, like, what? These Americans just dipped on the bill. Like, they all just said they're going to
die and dash.
He was dying to dash on them. But little did they know, Mike had covered it. So then the waiter came back and told them, I would assume. And these kids who are, like, a little bit younger than us, just entering college, like, sending us videos in, like, their their broken English. They're like, bro, like, thanks for dinner. That was so legendary. Like, just, I can insert it video right here.
Yeah, that would be hilarious if you did.
Oh.
Because from that then, the next day was probably the funnest day of walking.
Oh, yeah.
Ever.
Like, we're just bumping Spanish bangers. And, I kind of want to get into, like, like, how you were telling me, I don't know what exactly it was you were telling me, but basically something along the lines of, like, if you're confident.
Oh, the song thing?
Yeah, okay, what did you say? Do you remember?
So, one thing, like, if I'm not sure of something, and this is in a joking context.
Oh, yeah, I know what it is.
It's almost like, if you don't know what you're doing, sometimes if you're just confident enough to do it, something that you don't know if it's right or wrong, most of the time, like, life just goes on. Like, other people...
I remember, though, the advice you were saying is that you were telling me, like, back in high school, like, and you're from Staten Island, so you have, like, a very, like, intense accent.
Yeah.
Like, you don't realize probably because everyone here, but it's like, it's hard to sing as someone from Staten Island. And I'm not a good singer either, but you were like, you're like, I just embrace it. You're like, so sometimes, like, if there was girls I liked in the past or, like, friends, like, I would just sing, like, super horribly, but, like, they would always laugh because I was just so confident about it. And, like, I took that message to heart, and, like, I was just going balls to the wall trying so hard with my Spanish, but I would do everything, like, smiling and, like...
Esta es chica, es un fuego.
I want to tell about it too. And so, they were playing... Most of the time, they were playing Spanish music, but they played, like, the song, like, this girl is on fire. And I, like, roughly translated that lyric in my head, and I was just like, frick it, like, I'm just gonna burst out singing this. And I was like, Esta chica es fuego. And then Mike was doing it with me. And, like, all the girls we were with, like, thought it was so funny. And they were like, and by the end of it, like, our whole group of 15 people would walk down the street and just be like, Esta chica es fuego.
Dude, we would also, me and Ozzy at that point, we just found, like, this yin and yang, like duo complex where, like, we would do, like, goofy stuff, like just confidently, like, do this dance move. It's, like, literally just like this.
Dude, this is me and Mike whenever we walk into any situation. Doesn't matter if it was waking up 5 a.m. in the hostel, if it was
walking in the middle of the night
into some bar, or, like, with girl, like, bro, we would, a group of, like, 50 girls from the South all doing, like, the flamenco and singing and dancing. Me and Mike would just walk in, like, it's just so funny. I don't know how you came up with that, but it became, like, the signature dance. And I would just feed off your energy. So you would start doing that. I remember one time we were in a destination, and I picked up a guitar from the restaurant.
Yes, bro.
I don't even know if I was allowed to. I just picked it up, and I can't play anything on guitar. Not like I know guitar. And I was just, like, strumming it, like, sounding horrible, just singing like Drake to these, like, girls. You know?
Yeah, and dude, I think the biggest thing that me and Ozzy, like you're saying, we're doing is we were just having fun with the three of us, just being like goofy and laughing and just, like, enjoying each other's company. It was almost infectious to everybody around us, you know?
Yeah, and now I want to get into the story that you were leading to, and I want to mention that, like, there is a language barrier between us and all our friends, and there was, like, a girl...
Good at Spanish, though. He picked up Spanish very quickly because he knew a little bit, but it progressed very well.
Dude, I was just... Yeah, if you guys want to learn a language, just, like, immerse yourself. It's way better than learning in school. But, what was I going to say? Oh, like, the language barrier range. There was people who spoke zero English in our group, and there was people who spoke, like, great English in the group. But for the most part, it was the 3 kids we came all natively English, and then the rest of everyone all natively Spanish. And, like, we became friends off these people. And of course, we're talking to them. We're walking for 8 hours a day. But, like, so much of it was just, like, smiling and dancing and good vibe. Like, and that was a big lesson I learned, is that, like, you don't have to be some, like I guess I learned how much, like, body language speaks.
Positivity,
'cause, like,
smile, eyes.
We could just, like, look at these girls or the guys that we met and just be like, haha, and, like, throw up a smile like this, and they would like laugh too, and like the energy would be felt. And that was like a really kind of a big learning lesson. But you can take them to, or like another interesting thing is that in Spain, they party until like 6 a.m. in the morning. So
Crazy.
we all knew that like when we got to the final destination, Santiago, we were going to go out. It was our only time going out because the rest of the trip you're waking up at like 5 in the morning so you don't walk through the sun. And when we get to Santiago, obviously, as we told you, we arrived at 6 in the morning. So we just slept from like 9, 10 a.m. to like 5, 6 p.m.
Yeah.
And then we were just like fueled for the end and you can kind of get into what happened there.
So pretty much, and I just want to like throw this out there, like, dude, something like me and Ozzy don't drink, and I feel like a big part of our friendship is like crazy, just like good habits that we have.
Yeah.
So like when we went out this night, like we were just so confident and happy and becoming friends with each other that we decided to go out.
Yeah.
So we're mobbed out with like a group of like 15 to 20 of us.
Yeah.
And hold up.
I think we should comment on the drinking thing. I didn't even think about that. But that's another thing. Like I was just sitting here talking to you how confident me and Mike were. And like I literally forgot that I didn't drink. Like I don't drink. I haven't drank in a year.
Yeah, man.
Like it's
great. I'm so proud of you for that too.
That's like the amazing thing though is like it's almost like when I guess this is my first time talking on my podcast and not drinking for a year. And it's like I think that people like when I tell them that, they like look at me as like, oh, this guy like did this crazy impressive thing where he like didn't drink and he's 22 years old when everyone else should drink. But really, like there was no quitting. I didn't have a problem. I know you didn't have a problem either.
Exactly.
It was just like I saw the habits of the type of person I'd want to become, and it just didn't involve drinking. And you learn, the thing is like alcohol is liquid confidence. And when you just remove that, like you just find other ways to become confident.
Dude, and the craziest part, like everybody hearing this might think about going out, but no, it applies. Dude, I'm telling you, like I would not be on this trip if I didn't like quit drinking alcohol, for example. And part of it, like maybe you too.
Yeah, and just even like more emphasis on that, the guy who sent us hasn't drank alcohol in 15 years. And like so the more and more, and I'm telling you, like we were the ones singing in horrible Spanish. We were the ones walking in, playing the guitar and doing these silly dance moves. And like, it literally was like, you wake up great the next day, no hangover, you remember everything. Like, you're so present in the moment. And like, you learn to like find, like I'm at the party and I'm getting my confidence from like my
yin and yang.
Yeah, like not from people, not from like alcohol. And it's not even like a diss on alcohol drinkers, but it's just like I really encourage people, anyone who's thinking about it, to just try it.
Exactly, for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, it just like
see what happens.
Yeah, it's amazing. But anyways,
so we're at this discoteca and we're all hanging out, and the night's going well. We're all really bonding, enjoying our last night together, and something amazing happens. They're like, our group of Spanish friends are planning something, and me and Ozzy and Hussein are so confused. We're like, what's going on? You know?
Yeah.
So after like 20 minutes. They bring us over and they look at us and they say, guys, we really appreciate your friendship and we've bonded so much over this trip that we decided to get you presents. And we're like, what? Like, no, just even, not even receiving it, just the thought of somebody doing that for us, we were very happy. And they come over and they give us these shirts, and it's like a Camino tourist shirt. But the impressive thing, on the back of the shirt, each of them signed all 4 shirts and gave us like an individual message. So there's all these signatures with like heartfelt messages on the back, and it was honestly one of the craziest presents I've ever received in my life.
Yeah, there's so many things worth mentioning. The shirt said "You will never walk alone," which is cool because it's like it says "You will never walk alone," and then they all signed it. And like, I in a minute here, I want to get into another lesson we learned, which was lean back and let go.
Yes.
But before that, what made this gift was awesome. Like if any of my friends gave me this gift, I would be like thrilled. But the thing that made it like even better is that we knew these people for like the last 3 to 4 days. Like we known them, and you're spending a lot of time, you're walking together, you're having meals together, but it's like there's a language barrier. You knew these people at 3 to 4 days, and like to have an impression that much where they like want to write you, that's like, I think that story is what I will tell people when I'm like, you should go on the Camino, because it's like, I've never can imagine in like for the rest of my life. And I think now I can like create these kind of interactions, but I never thought like, wow, you can get this close to someone in 3 days and like have this much of a memorable experience with, like, if we're being honest, there's a good chance we never see any of those people again.
Exactly.
But like, and that's why I want to get into this lesson of like leaning back and letting go.
So, before I left for Spain, we're at the New York City Alex Benayan Third Door event, and me and Hussein are planning on going. So it's like the night out. We're about to say bye to Alex after his event, and our friend Alex looks at us and he knows we're going on the Camino, and he gives us 2 really good pieces of advice. He looks at me and Hussein and he says, guys, I just spent the weekend with Michael Singer. I've been reading his book. He taught me these very valuable lessons. The first one is, anytime anything happens in your life, whether good, bad, or indifferent, lean back, take a deep breath, and just let go. And that's all he said. The other thing was, everything that happens in your life is meant for your growth, your spiritual growth. And he had us repeat, my spiritual growth.
Yeah.
And those 2 lessons I brought on the trail with me and Hussein as well. And we were explaining to Ozzy very early on, and we walked the Camino with that entire mindset.
Yeah. And I think this is something I tell people when they ask me about the Camino, and I only have a few seconds with them. Why the Camino is such a beautiful place is because, for example, my first day walking, you'll meet someone. So you'll be your first day walking, you'll meet someone. There's not really small talk on the Camino. Everyone just wants to get deep because they're there with their search. And so you'll meet someone, you'll talk to them for like 3 hours, you'll become like fairly close to them, and then they will either walk faster than you, or you will walk faster than them, or they'll wake up earlier, or you'll wake up early. But for some reason, your paths will no longer be aligned. So you'll get really close to someone, and then you'll just have to like let go of that relationship. And you, for all you know, and especially in the early days, you don't know if you'll ever see that person again. But then it will be like 3 to 4 days later, or you'll be on some little restaurant on top of a mountain where there's horses walking outside, and you'll see someone that you were like best friends with on day one. You'll be like, oh, that's my best friend from day one. But then as you continue to walk the Camino, you're meeting people everywhere you go. So toward the end of it, every restaurant, every store you walk into, you're like, oh, there's my best friend from day one, and day 4's over there, and day 7's over there. And you kind of, like, and there's people who are like not even your best friends, but they're just like memes. Like we met this like Asian kid Jew on my first day, and he had like the biggest calves ever.
He was an animal. We didn't think he would, like, we thought we would see him once and he'd be in Santiago.
Yeah, like we thought we'd never see him again because he was just mobbing. But like 3 or 4 times we would just see him in the most random situations, and he would just be with like his friends or whatever.
He didn't even speak English, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but he was just, dude, it goes back to that thing. Like every time we saw him, he would just smile and like the vibes, and we'd just be like, oh, Jew again. Like,
exactly. One thing I want to get into, if you're cool with it, is just like the experience we had like on my birthday morning, really quick.
Oh yeah.
So the lesson of lean back, let go. I took it a little too literal one morning, and I woke up pretty much on my birthday in the middle of the night. It was like 4 a.m. Yeah. So I get up, I leave Hussein a note that says adventures only happen to the adventurous, and I tape it to his backpack. So I'm planning on walking. By the time Ozzy gets up, he'll like see the letter, you know, and like they'll just walk, you know.
Yeah.
What winds up happening is Hussein wakes up, he sees this note. It's so dark that he crumbles it up and like throws it away.
Like, he just like ripped it off, didn't read it, and threw it away.
Yeah. So they think something happened to me, and I'm just walking with no cell service.
Yeah.
So pretty much I reached my destination, and I'm getting phone calls like, Mike, where are you? Like, is everything okay? You know, like, and I just like completely let go to this crazy adventure. And it was crazy because I was walking, it was pouring rain, it was pitch black, there was like animal marks all over. I was kind of a little scared, but it was a really cool growing experience for me, being alone in the wilderness like that. It was like fight or flight. But anyway, Ozzy meets up with me, and one of the things that like I appreciate, he was kind of like, Dude, like, I was a little, like, indifferent. Like, I don't know how I felt about when you left us because we didn't know. But I also adopted the concept, like, just lean back and let go. Because everything's just an experience, you know?
I think it's, like, worth it. The let go lesson on the Camino is taught in so many ways. So, first of all, you're meeting all these people, and then you have to, like, accept that you might never see them again. And especially at the end of the Camino when we had our best friends and, like, saying goodbye to them, it's like you say you're going to stay in contact, but who knows? Like, we'll be lucky if we, like, see 2 of those people again.
It's going to be Javi.
Yeah, Javi and...
Javi.
Yeah. I hope we see the Andalusia girls, too, at some point. But that's, like, one way you're letting go. So you're meeting people and you're letting go. The other thing is, like me and Mike both did mornings where we walked kind of through the dark and alone, and you're, like, having all these kind of fears that you have to let go of. And then there's multiple times where, like, just you battle, like, insane emotions in your head. Because it's, like, one day we accidentally walked a marathon.
Yeah, so that was my birthday. So go into that, like, what happened after I walked the first part. They met up with me. We eat lunch, and then what happened?
So keep in mind, he left at 4 a.m. So by the time we caught up to him, it was in the destination. What we had decided for the day was the destination.
Yeah, it was like 25 kilometers.
It was like 25 kilometers, and then we saw a sign, and we're like, it wasn't even that late. It was like 12 p.m., and we're like, dude, like, let's just walk another 8 kilometers. And we see the sign. It says, like, 8 kilometers to the next city or something. Turns out it was, like, 25 kilometers. Yeah. And so we literally walked, like, I think I calculated. It was a literal marathon. And this is not, like, none of us are cardio people. None of us have trained for a marathon. And on top of that, we've walked like 20 miles every day before. So now we're walking like 15 to 20 miles every day. And then we throw in like a 28-mile day. And
yeah, I looked at the steps. It was 60,000. I did the conversion for like our height and weights.
Yeah.
And it came out to about 30 miles that day.
I also did, I looked at like average steps in a marathon, and 60,000 was on like the high end.
And we're doing like up mountains, down mountains.
Yeah.
Like, it's not flat terrain at all.
And we also met a marathon runner who told us that walking the Camino was way harder than running a marathon.
Oh, yeah. We had that debate. I forgot about that.
Because we were trying to think, like, would I rather walk the Camino or run a marathon? Like,
easily.
Just for the pain aspect. Like, the Camino is a way better experience, I'll say, for sure.
Keep going into the story with Hussein now, because that's a...
But I also want to say, like you have these thoughts of, like, I don't want to say quitting. Like, I never had any doubts that I would be able to do it, but just, like, painful thoughts of, like, you have to, like, let go of negative thoughts.
Exactly.
And it's also not just, like, letting go for yourself, but it's letting go for the people around you, because, like, you all feed off each other's energy. And when one person in the group kind of is, like, doubting themselves, you can feel it. Like, you can definitely speak for that. And so we're walking this marathon, and our friend Hussein has, like, injured himself, and he's, like...
Hottest part of the day as well. We have probably an hour and a half of walking left.
Bro, and the other thing, too, is you get less efficient as you go on. So when you walk 20 miles, it's, like, really, really bad, and then for, like, the last 2 miles, you're, like, going, like, 3 times slower. But then we added, like, an extra 8 miles, and just, like... crawling to the finish line. And, like, the dumb part is we didn't even have to go there. Like, we set up it goes back to, like, we were chasing a destination in our head.
Yes.
And I'm happy we did it because it taught us so much, but we so didn't have to do it.
Okay, so here's what happened, pretty much. Yeah. We get to a point where our friend Hussein, like, literally arms around our shoulders, like, walking down this steep decline, and we get to a flat. So at this point, we probably, like, have an hour and 15, an hour 20 left, and Hussein's really, really hurting, and all of us are hurting, honestly. Yeah. And Hussein calls up his brother, and when Hussein talks to his brother, it was somewhat along the lines, like, I don't know if I could do this, you know?
Yeah.
And he got in his head a little bit, like, he started to doubt himself, and it got to the point where he was thinking about quitting. So me and Ozzy, like, this got really bad. Like, I don't want to talk about it, how bad it got, but Hussein was about to throw in the towel.
But yeah, I think you should mention the observation. The observation that Mike made was that, when he's on the phone with his brother, like, he's in less pain.
I think we both came out with that.
And we had realized that conversation, the best cure for pain is good conversation.
Yes.
So that was what me and Mike were talking about when he was on the phone with his brother.
So Ozzy, honestly, is an interviewer. So we figured, like, Ozzy was like, yo, I got this. Watch this.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, please. So Hussein, I carry Hussein's bag. I start walking ahead. And Ozzy and Hussein are talking now. And you could talk about that experience.
I also prefer to call myself a conversationalist, but I come in and sorry, that's just like a silly me thing.
No, that's facts. I respect it.
Because the interviewer, it's just two different skills, but that's just a sub point. But I come in and I just start asking Hussein, like, another funny thing is that Hussein kept making jokes about David Goggins the whole time.
David Goggins, if you ever see this, you have to meet our friend Hussein.
Okay, like, I don't know why, but like, super commonly around the Camino, there's like piles of like massive logs. And so every time we walk by a pile of massive logs, Hussein would reference David Goggins and he'd be like, who's going to carry the logs? And so, and Hussein's like someone who really feeds off a good story. Like his whole career is reviewing movies, reviewing the hero's journey. Like this guy knows how to tell a story and he appreciates stories more than anyone I've ever met. And so I was like, I just gotta like break him down to his core story.
Yes, peeling the onion back, bro.
And he was in the most pain of his life. And I literally was like, dude, take me back to the first time you walked in the gym.
Your gym origin story.
Like, tell me your gym origin story. And actually, the first 2 or 3 questions I asked him, he like looked at me and he was like, I can't talk right now. Like, I gotta face this alone. And then I was like, take me to your gym origin story. And he's like, all right. And he starts going into his high school experience and the negative side and how like he was in this dark time in his life and that the gym helped him like become this confident person and how he found YouTube and how YouTube helped him build confidence. And then he read The Third Door, and through The Third Door he made his friends. And then there was this time where there was this push-up contest and he did way more than he thought he could. And I was like, that's it. And the funny thing was he said that he could only do. The funny thing was that he did a certain amount of he had a number of push-ups in his head.
It was 14.
14 push-ups, and he thought like he couldn't do any more than 14. He was like a little scrawny kid, and then he did 12 more. And this was super ironic because we had 12 more kilometers from where we had stopped, and I like honed in on this detail, and I was like, dude, you fed off this story for your entire life, and now you're going to have an even better story to feed off. And I was just like letting him talk to himself, and he just like came up with this like hero's journey, and he just was spitting it back at us, and we just like, the last hour flew by.
Before you know it, we were back and viewing, like, because I was kind of like on the outside of this and just watching the conversation, like, it was one of the most amazing things I've seen somebody like to get somebody else through. And I was honestly like in awe, like, wow, like if Ozzy wasn't here, like I don't know what would have happened. So
yeah,
it was really cool of you to do that, you know.
It was just the lesson that was like, most of the lessons on the Camino were like kind of learned over time or repeated over and over again, but there was something in that moment that was learned instantly that I will take for the rest of my life, which was that storytelling is strength. And I'm not just saying like a good story is powerful. No, like it is literal physical strength. Like I'm telling you, we were in the most pain we've ever been in. We all wanted to quit. Hussein was like near dying, and we just told stories to each other. And before we knew it, like we finished.
And one thing Elliot taught us is pretty much that you got to find your crew, man. Like he was explaining how this trip, if you did it solo, like, yeah, you would have fun. But think about how fun it is to do it with a group of people. And you could look at it like a business. Like you have your CFO, you have your creative CTO, and then you have like the CEO. And pretty much we took up these roles for the trip. And that was pretty much perfect execution of us sticking together and making it through a very hard part.
Yeah, it was like Mike was super logistical. He planned all the hostels. He planned the restaurants. I was like kind of leaning into storytelling and like
meeting people, creative, having fun.
And then Hussein was just like the vibes, just making everyone laugh all day.
Catalyst ball of energy.
Catalyst ball of energy, just like making us die laughing all day. And Yeah, it was just we are all feeding off each other. And the other thing too is like this idea of shared suffering. Like you there's two cases I can think of right now, which is like your family. Like, why are you so close to your family? It's because you go through a lot of good with your family, but you also go through a lot of bad. Like, your family knows the bad moments in your life more than anyone, or that's generally the truth. And then there's like the example of like frat culture. It's like, why is hazing still around in 2023? It's because shared suffering. But this was like just positive shared suffering. Just like, you're all working out together and you all have the same goal. You all know each other's pain. It's like primarily just in your feet and your knees. And it's just like the funniest thing is when you sit down for like a meal and you all eat and you're laughing and then you get up and you have like three of the most athletic kids I know and you're just like limping like old men. It's just like the funniest thing.
One thing I want to bounce off of that is pretty much going into it, I had this theory that your best friends, like right now in the world, you only know about 10% of their actual life.
Yeah.
And from us spending so much time with each other 24/7, like microanalyzing each other, I find that me, Ozzy, and Hussein found out way more, 20%, 30% of each other in this short amount of time because we were literally 24 hours a day with each other, literally sleeping next to each other, eating every meal. The bathrooms were out, like where you were pissing outside to get, like, you know what I mean? Just a bunch of stuff like that.
Oh my gosh, we should get in the shower story real quick.
No, dude,
We can't tell the shower story?
About the
like just being in the shower together. Like, I'll just say it. I don't think it's bad. Which was
no, it was just like,
it was just funny because up until this point, all the showers we had been in had like doors or curtains or anything, and we get to one hostel on top of a mountain, and it was like
just naked,
just like dividers, like basically urinals but for showers. And we're all in there, and when we entered there was no one else in there, so we were all like naked in the showers, and we're showering, and Hussein, like me and Mike were making jokes about like seeing each other naked, although like we weren't,
like dumbass jokes.
We weren't actually looking, like we're trying to avoid looking at each other. And then Hussein's like, I hate how when I go to the gym, like these old men walk around with like their dong out. And as he's saying this, he's not realizing that an old dude's walking in there completely naked. And he's just like, yeah, I hate how old men walk with their dogs. And chances are...
He heard us 100%, and we dipped out of there.
Chances are, though, he didn't understand English. Or I don't know, maybe
No, I think he did, because we saw that guy later in the trip, too. It was so funny. That was prime example. Like, you see that guy, and you never want to see him again, because it was so funny.
Yeah,
and then you just run into him, like, 20 more times.
Just in random places. Yeah, wait. I want to talk about the stages of pain, like, briefly.
Oh, yeah. That was a cool thing that we did.
Yeah, so one of the things we hyperanalyzed a lot is, like, most pain that people experience is, like, instantaneous or relatively fast. Like, if you like, hit your toe against something, it's, like, an instant pain. Or even, like, a marathon, for example. Like, it's really painful, but, like, you know it's gonna, like, end. And that is the same for the Camino, but it's, like, you know you're gonna wake up and do it again the next day. And you're gonna wake up and do it again. And even, like, pain severely kicks in when you have like 2 to 3 hours left. So it's not like you're like, pain, the final stretch. It's like you get to a pain point and you're like, all right, it's just gonna get like worse for the next 3 hours, and you just have to accept that. And
do you remember the levels we said?
Yeah, I think
it was 5, right?
Yeah, I think though we could probably like sum it up into 3, which to me, and you can correct me, like jump in, is like the first kind of level is like shared suffering, which is like, you know, you're kind of in pain, your friends are in pain, and this kind of brings you together, and it's not really affecting you too much other than that you're all like acknowledging it.
Still fully conversational.
Yeah.
Talking to each other, laughing, all that.
And then you get to a stage of pain that's like even better than that. I call it pain is joy, where it's like,
I like that.
Everything is so painful that it becomes hilarious.
Yes.
So like you look over at your friend and he's limping, and so you start laughing, and then your friend looks over at you and you're like taking a step, and you're like, yeah, and you're doing stupid everything. Like you just, you know how like you're always like overthinking, like, oh, if I dance right now that would be cringe, or if I did you don't care.
So present.
Nothing matters because you're in so much pain that it's just like everything is hilarious. Like I remember very vividly like looking at Hussein and Mike, them not doing anything and me just thinking it was hilarious. Like just looking at them and just dying laughing.
Wait, the conversations too that we have to talk about that real quick at the end of the days. But yeah, go to the third stage.
And then the third stage is just like pain is silence, where it's just like you're walking for hours. So when you enter the stage, it's like you're walking an hour and no one says a word to each other. And you look at them and you like make contact and they're just like giving you the dirtiest look, like don't initiate a conversation with me. Yeah. I just want to move forward.
But it is like that type of pain where you go deep within yourself and you're like looking for you're getting deep and thinking like, okay, like what do I need to solve with myself? Exactly. And it's a good thing to experience.
You're like really, and that goes back to I think it's like a subcategory of the lesson, lean back and let go. Because you're having these thoughts that are bad. Like I don't want to say like want to quit, but you're having thoughts like, dude, is my leg gonna be like this forever? Like, are these injuries gonna stay with me? Like, am I okay? Like, this is such a bad idea. Or like, I don't enjoy this trip. And you know, like you love the trip, you love the workout, but like you get to this point where all the thoughts coming in are negative and you have to just like lean back and let them go. Like you're a freaking straw. You let the thoughts come in and let them go out.
Exactly.
And it's really hard when you enter that stage of pain. It's hard to like interact. You don't want to interact. And you also don't want to put that negative energy on someone else. So everyone just kind of gets silent. And then it's funny because stages 2 and 3, you like bounce back and forth between. So it's like you go like everything is hilarious, like every moment is funny, to just silence.
And then you like ease up a little.
Yeah, and then
easy part, and you start laughing, and then you stop talking.
And for like the most part, like you're all on the same level, but there's like occasional times where someone will be in one bit. Like I remember a couple times where I was in the pain is joy, and I was talking to you, and you were not.
Oh, yeah, like somebody's in a phase and you're out of the phase.
Yeah, and you're
exactly.
Like that's funny too.
Dude, I think we should say the last story with me and Hussein eating, and then I think we have to go, and maybe we could do like a part 2 to our story.
Yeah, dude, I think it's past 7. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know.
Let me check real quick. Yeah, it's 7:20. We gotta head out.
Will we be able to make it to the? Well,
yeah, it's 5 minutes away. So,
but are they still playing?
Yeah, they're starting at 7:30.
Oh, they start at 7:30.
Yeah, dude, and it would be sick. Like if you want, like if people are interested in this, and we ever make a part 2 to it. You know what I mean?
Oh, you want to just end it here or film part 2?
Yeah, because there's so much stuff we didn't talk about that.
All right, wait. Let's try to think of something. If there's anything like really.
Just say quickly the story about me and Hussein looking at each other like and.
Okay, so yeah, this is kind of like a bonus stage of pain. I wouldn't call this pain, but when you get to we called it brain dead, but when you get to
let's name it something else for the podcast because I don't want it to get like canceled. You can't.
Bro,
use that word.
They're gonna understand when we explain it.
Okay. Okay.
Basically, and I'm sure marathon runners or anyone who's done a crazy workout has felt this before, but like when you get to your destination and your body knows like, all right, I can relax now, you become straight stupid because like you just like used all your mental power the entire day and you just finally relax. And I remember one example of this like brainless or brain dead activity was we went to a restaurant. And everyone on the Camino is called a pilgrim. You have these things called pilgrim passports, which that's actually worth explaining too. It's like, so you have these things called pilgrim passports and you get stamps in every restaurant, everywhere along the Camino you can get stamps. And at the end, you bring the stamps to Santiago and they give you a certificate of how far you walked, which is cool. But everyone on the Camino is called a pilgrim, and the restaurants have these menus called pilgrim menus.
They're 15 euros too. You get unlimited, we don't drink, but you have unlimited wine, cappuccinos, bread. You get a big first course meal, second course meal, and dessert.
Yeah, like massive meals for 12 to 15 euros. And our friend Hussein is Muslim, so he doesn't know if the meat is halal because we're in mountain town in Spain, so how would you know? And so he basically, pretty much for the sake of this trip, he can't eat meat. And so a lot of the main courses have meat in them. And,
yes.
And we need to sub them out. And so he's like, Hussein's like, I want to get this thing that's not on the pilgrim menu and then get the first course from the pilgrim menu and the dessert, and I want to sub it into my meal. And you were like,
why don't you switch out the meal, the second course, for a side? And we were saying the same exact thing.
yeah, they were literally saying the exact same thing, just flipped. Like one was saying, get the pilgrim meal, substitute the course in, and the other was saying, get the course and add the 2 pilgrim meal menus.
Literal 10-minute conversation of us just going back and forth, and Ozzy's hysterical laugh.
I was dying laughing because they're explaining the exact same thing to each other. Like, yo, you should do this. You should do this. You should. And it was the exact same thing, but they were so like tired from the miles of walking that they couldn't comprehend that they were saying the same thing to each other. And I was just like, dude, it was just freaking hilarious.
Dude, I fucking love this.
Yeah.
I'm pumped, and I think like, if you're up to it, like...
Yeah, I kind of want to maybe film some more and then add it to the end of the podcast.
All right, yeah, let's do that.
But, yeah, because then we'll have time to think about it. So, hopefully there's something else after this. But if there's not, yeah.
You have to reach out to either me, Ozzy, or Hussein to find out
Oh, I didn't...
the extra details.
I didn't
You
ask
answer
you
your
my
question.
my outro question. Should I do that now or
No.
Okay.
I love that.
Okay. All right, but let's just...
All right, cool. Dude, I thought that was great.
Hour and 6 minutes.